Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sutton. We're here in the London Borough of Sutton, courtesy of the successful Sutton bid. And this afternoon, we're delighted to be able to share our thoughts and share with you some of the news that we have around your staff and answer any questions that you might have about how your business maybe can be helped as we hopefully come out of the current pandemic situation. I'm sure many of you have lots of queries around how to reopen your businesses, how to deal with your staffing issues. And I've got a great panel of experts with me, as always, today to help you with those queries. So just to say, anybody who's watching us live, it would be fantastic if you could talk to us, and you can do that by either chatting to us using the chat function in your Zoom bar, or of course by putting a question into the Q&A, and that will enable me to put the question to the panel on your behalf. So do use the next hour as an opportunity to ask those questions that maybe otherwise you'd have to hang on to a phone line or maybe wait for an email response. You can put your questions immediately through to the people that hopefully can give you the answers. So we are recording this session, so to anyone that isn't watching live, welcome, and hope that you will find this session useful too. Now, before we move on, we do have a poll that I'm just going to share with you. And anybody that's watching us live, you could just take a few seconds just to answer this poll. So looking to the roadmap out of COVID-19 lockdown and the easing of restrictions, what areas would you be looking for support with? And this will help the team at Successful Sutton to work out maybe what other information you might need in the future. So as I say, if you could take a few moments to answer that, that would be fantastic. So first of all, I'd like to invite Patricia. Patricia, everyone will know in Sutton, Patricia is the manager of the Successful Sutton bid, who are putting these webinars together for you. So over to you, Patricia. Give us an update of what's happening at the moment with the bid.
So obviously we're quite focused on reopening at the moment, as is everybody, I think, at this stage. So we're doing various bits and pieces to try and support that reopening, the stenciling and so on in the high street, and making plans for hopefully what will be some events coming up towards the latter part of this year, fingers crossed, which is a bit more than we were able to do last year. So it's all quite positive. We're obviously working with the council around the Future High Street Fund and understanding what the plans are for the town centre over the long term as well. So that'll be quite interesting few years coming up. But for now, obviously, as far as this session is concerned, we are really quite excited because we've been able to secure some funding for delivery of a Sutton-centric based recruitment service for our district and the borough. That is mainly through the DWP. And what we're being able to do is have a live active cohort of job seekers or people that are seeking work aged 18 to 24. We've called it the Sutton Job Hub, but it enables businesses to be able to send us through any vacancies. We can then resource from that cohort of individuals that are looking for work, but also then advertise those vacancies to the wider borough via Enjoy Sutton, sending it out to everybody so that it kind of widens the scope of who can apply, but keeps it very Sutton focused. And the other thing, we also have been awarded gateway status for the government's Kickstart Scheme, which is another good bit of news that we've had over the lockdown period. And through that, we're able to support businesses with funding placements for people doing work experience. There are some stipulations to that, which I can go through in a bit more detail a bit later. But essentially, it means that you can create a role for somebody that's aged 16 to 24 within your business. It's all fully funded. Their training is funded. You're building their employability and their experience. And then as a hub, we can then take them forward, hopefully even to an apprenticeship or to a longer term role now that they've got that under their belt. So yeah, very busy times.
Exciting, because lots of things happening, lots of initiatives coming forward, I guess all aimed at helping not only businesses but residents, people in the borough that have unfortunately found themselves in the need of looking for a new job or upskilling or maybe leaving education for the first time and finding themselves in this quite different world to maybe what they were expecting to do. And I know when we were talking earlier, you were mentioning that there's quite a range of caliber of applicants coming forward. It isn't just young people with no skills. There is a whole range of people out there.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that we kind of, when you say work experience, so I'm a child of the 80s. My work experience was basically licking envelopes and sticking stamps on them as part of a big massive mail merge for 2 weeks. But
that was if you were lucky.
If you were lucky, yeah, exactly. But it's very different now, and I think the understanding that I want from today is that the quality of the people we were getting graduate level people that are looking for paid experience because they haven't been able to attain that after qualifying last year or finishing university last year. We're also getting people that have finished college courses last year that have got very specific training, particularly around childcare and other things, and they simply haven't been able to find work because of lockdown, but are now ready. And as things start opening up, for us, it's really important that we start looking at trying to keep the economic activity of our town centre up. And so it's good to be able to play a massive part in that. But also being able to support our employees, because we can actually find and source training for individuals to bring them up to speed with anything specific around the sector that some of our businesses operate in, particularly around health and safety, around CSCS cards, SIA training, first aid training, all those kinds of things. We can actually get those people up to speed and then to interview or to placement, and actually get that while they're in placement as well. So it kind of puts a new spin. But also for our recruitment agencies, it does mean that you have this active resource, and we can actually feed people to our agencies who are looking for work, who are local, and they can actually fulfill their contracts that a lot of our agencies have now with some of those larger employers. So yeah, it is a pretty exciting, very different for a bid. It's actually unique to this bid.
Yes.
There isn't.
But then, we're all in a unique situation. None of us have been here before, so we're all having to do things differently, and which is exciting as well as possibly a bit daunting. But nevertheless, it's a challenge, and it's great, isn't it? That it was probably this time last year that we ran the first one of these webinars, and none of us knew what the future would hold. And we probably naively thought it was a short-term thing that we'd all be out within a couple of months. And here we are over a year later, still, on contemplating coming out. But the good thing is we're still here. Yeah. So that's a positive. So thanks for that. I'm going to ask Maria to come in now. So hi, Maria. Hi. No stranger again to Sutton. You've been on a lot of the webinars from the HR department. And as we've just said, a year ago, things were very different. The thing that is still constant is we do still have a furlough scheme, albeit about to change. And for a lot of businesses, particularly in the retail sector, and other sectors, very excitedly looking to reopen literally imminently within the next couple of weeks. So just talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing at the moment and what your needs are. And for those of you that are watching us live, don't forget, do feel free to put any questions to anybody that you might have, whether that's about your own business or more generally. So over to you, Maria.
Thanks, Catherine. Good to be here today. So definitely furlough is still on everybody's lips. And as you said, we a year into this, and still a majority of people in a lot of sectors are on furlough. So just as a reminder, furlough scheme has been extended now until the end of September. The flexible furlough scheme is still in place. So that means it doesn't have to be this all or nothing approach. You don't have to furlough your people on a full-time basis or have them at work full-time. You can flex. There's no minimum requirement for employees under flexible furlough to work any certain number of days or hours. So if you might have 2 hours of work next week or in the next couple of months, then that's fine. You can still use flexible furlough. And what you would do, you would pay them the normal rate of pay for the hours that they are working for you, and there would be furlough, and you would claim 80% of the wages from the government under the job retention scheme. Remember, if you already have been following people, then you'll be no stranger to that, but you already have to contribute the national insurance cost and the pensions, and that will increase. So the government has already told us that from July, on top of that, you will have to start contributing 10% out of the 80, and then 20% again in August and September. So I think important now for businesses to budget for it, because your cost of keeping people on furlough will increase. And remember that we must not use furlough for notice. So even if people resign because they maybe found another job whilst they've been furloughed for long term, or if indeed you need to restructure and make some redundancies, again, you need to have a separate pot of money to account for that notice period, which previously we were able to claim under furlough, but the government has closed that loophole.
So that has changed, right. Okay.
So again, I think the message throughout all this, and I know it's really difficult, is just plan so that you are not surprised and the kind of July and August and September doesn't creep up on you and you then go, oh, we've got too many people and not enough work. Start thinking about it now. And maybe it's about reducing hours consistently across the board for a few months. So maybe you can return people on some flexible working. There is a lot of goodwill out there with people. Everybody knows we're in the situation together. So employees might be prepared to work with you and flex a little bit to help the business overall. And the second one, I think that is also on businesses' minds, is how we're going to re-emerge and whether we're going to work from homes or whether we're going to do some sort of hybrid approach. And even in retail, when we do have some back office function, so is it that back office function might perhaps be based remotely and so on. So again, consider what that might look like going forward. Health and safety is important, so make sure you're COVID secure, whether you're working from home or within the premises, and start thinking about developing, maybe together with your employees, a home working or hybrid working policy. So kind of think about the do's and don'ts. Are there any core hours or core days of the week where you need people to come together, both for the social element, but also just so everybody knows in terms of what's happening with the businesses. So I would say from kind of HR perspective, those are the two top priorities for businesses right now.
Great. I mean, certainly that question about coming back in and the challenges that actually does present. I know it's something that we're finding in our business because actually everyone's got used to communicating in this way on Zoom. And when you try and do the hybrid, it's actually quite hard to mix the two. So actually working out what that's going to look like moving forward is, I think, a big challenge to a lot of office-based businesses. And as you say, as we come out of lockdown and furlough is reduced, I mean, again, go back 6 months on one of these webinars, we were all then thinking about having to plan for furlough finishing, and then obviously it gets extended and then it gets extended. But I guess it is now finishing fully. I don't think there's any expectations that it's going to continue unless something awful happens again. But I mean, the expectation is that it will end, presumably.
Although they do say it's data driven, not date driven. Yes. So I'm guessing
that's right.
We have some sort of another spike, then the government might have to think again. But obviously,
but I think that message about starting to budget to assume that it is definitely finishing and making sure that you have actually thought that through in terms of any redundancies and things is, a really valid point, which I guess will mean that the need for apprenticeships, kickstarts and all sorts of other things will be even greater, because sadly there will be more people out there that suddenly find themselves without furlough and without a job. So probably good time to invite Angela into the conversation. Hi, Angela. Angela from your head of employability at South Thames College Group. So tell us a little bit about how the college can help businesses and residents.
Okay, as we start to get back to normal, we're looking for work experience for our students. Majority of this year has been virtual, so they haven't actually been able to go out and work in the workplace. So we're looking for opportunities where they can go and do that, like locally in Sutton. The college as a whole, we have like apprenticeship programs as well. So we can assist you with apprenticeships. It's a good time now to take on an apprenticeship with all the financial incentives from the government. We've also got the Kickstart program, and we do lots of training for employers to upskill their staff as well.
So just picking up on that first point, you mentioned about work experience. What does a business have to do, and why, I guess the challenge is, if you're running a small business, on top of everything else you're trying to contend with, the thought of then having a work experience to look after is potentially one step too far for many people. Just tell us a little bit, sell us, why should we all, what are the benefits of having this work experience?
We make the process as painless as possible. So we have a dedicated team at both Merton and Carshalton colleges. So we're there to help and make it a smooth process. What we do is, we liaise with the employers. The majority of our students go in and they really impress the employers. They're like, they just blend in. They don't take any additional support. Once they're given a job description, they know what they're doing. They're just like any other member of staff. We do ask for some feedback on their progress, and we're there to kind of deal with any issues as they arise and support employers with that. But it's a fantastic opportunity for you, to support your local community. And to give them the chance to progress into paid employment in the future.
Right. Okay. Now, I know we've got your colleague with us, I think. I don't know whether I think she's with us. Catherine, are you with us? Catherine Elliott, Head of Business Development at South Thames. Are you with us at the moment? No? I thought we did have her, but maybe we haven't. Okay, not to worry. If we get Catherine in, I know Catherine can talk. Oh, hi.
I'm here.
Hi.
I just managed to join, so thank you.
Oh, right. Okay, wonderful. Welcome. Thank you very much. Perfect timing, because sort of Andrew's just touched upon the fact that obviously you do apprenticeships, and you also, like Successful Sutton, will be or are operating the Kickstart Scheme. So obviously tell us a little bit about that and how businesses can benefit, because I know there's an extra incentive at the moment, isn't there? Particularly on the apprenticeships.
Is. So there is an incentive that was announced in the budget at the beginning of March for employers to take on an apprentice. So it's for any apprentice who starts their apprenticeship between the 1st of April and the 30th of September this year. And the incentive is £3,000 for the employer. We held a webinar last week, actually, which was hugely popular with employers across South West London, and we're holding another one on the 21st of April to talk it through in a bit more detail about what it means in terms of the incentive, how it gets paid, and also a bit more just about how apprenticeships work and the role of the employer, because it's not an easy option. From employers, and we do want people to know that and to understand sort of what the responsibilities are of the employer of taking on an apprentice, but actually it can be hugely rewarding both for the apprentice themselves and for the employer to have an apprentice. So I'm very happy to talk to anybody in more detail who might be interested in taking on an apprentice. We're also just launching some new apprenticeships at Merton College in hospitality and catering. So we've got 3 new apprenticeships launching there, commie chef, chef de partie, and hospitality supervisor. And that's in response to, the hospitality sector is going to be hopefully reopening up very soon. And, we're going to be needing all of these skills, because a lot of people who were in the hospitality industry may have moved on to other things and had to find other employment. So I think that we're anticipating that there will be a gap for these kind of skills. So
is it a question of, if you're an employer in a particular sector, there are obviously apprenticeships available in any sector, I'm imagining, but is it that at South Thames you only offer certain types of apprenticeships?
Yes, so there's about 600 apprenticeships, and they are in every single area you could possibly think of. I think we probably offer about 60 or 70 across of those, but what we're very happy to do is talk to anybody who might be interested, and where possible we can obviously help, but where not, we'll do our very best to direct people to, if we can't help, to direct them to where people might be able to help, where there might be other colleges or other training providers that can help.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, a really important message at this time. And you are also a Kickstart gateway.
We're not a gateway. We're not actually a gateway. We're one of the training providers. We were going to be a gateway. We decided not to in the end, because we felt there were lots of other organisations who could probably do a better job than we could of actually being the gateway. And we decided we'd be better placed looking after the training side of things. So once there are people in employment, part of the programme is that they need to have a level of training and development, which the employers can provide themselves if they want to and they're equipped to do so. But if not, then we have a training package at the college that we can offer. And again, very happy to talk to any of the gateways, organisations, or any of the employers themselves about what they might need.
So again, just bringing Patricia back in. So in terms of the Sutton Job Hub or the Youth Employability Hub or whatever, that's the whole premise, isn't it? That effectively you're like the funnel. People come into you with a requirement, and then Patricia, you would funnel it out to South Thames or whoever it might be able to fulfil it.
Yeah, so that's it. So we are actually working with Catherine in South Thames.
Yeah.
So our view on it was that obviously our role is to find the actual suitable placement. I think that asking South Thames to resource for the employability element, which is a requirement of that placement, is important, because as an employer, you want to be focused on the sector specific stuff. You want to be focused on what that person's experience is being gained, rather than dealing with the other stuff, the kind of employability and interview skills and all that kind of thing that South Thames can provide. So what we said was that South Thames very kindly put together this really handy menu of all the things that they're going to be doing, which actually at the end of the course, the inductee or the applicant gets issued with a certificate to say they've completed that element of it. So that goes with them when they move on, or however they move on into different roles. And so what we do is we give the employer their bursary. So we give them half of their bursary towards equipment, which is actually in total £1,500. So they get £750 for them to be able to buy equipment or support or internal support, whatever they need in order to make that placement successful. And the other part of that then goes to South Thames, who deliver that employability element of it. As Catherine said, it's very much down to the employer. If they want to do it themselves, by all means, they're more than welcome to. But I personally think the commitment you need in order to meet the criteria of the placements, which is set out under the government structure, I think is a lot of an employment ask from an employer's perspective. So I think it's good to be able to offset that.
So there's a real partnership then with the employer and yourselves and whoever the training provider would be. But I guess the crucial thing to bear in mind if you're an employer is, first of all, you don't end up paying that individual. So there is no cost to you. And in addition, it sounds like there's a £750 payout in effect to help towards the costs of taking on that placement, because they're not an employee, are they? They're they're a work placement in effect.
They're essentially an employee to all intents, but what they are is given a full induction, and you're treating them exactly the same as you would do any other employee that comes to you. So you're doing a full induction with them, anything you need to do around health and safety and so forth, and also they're on your payroll. So whilst it is granted and you are paying them through a grant funding scheme, you are putting them on your payroll in order to do so. So all things that go alongside that, including pension and so on and so forth, would be part and parcel. So the whole thing is fully funded for 6 months, and it's up to 25 hours a week. And it's paid at national minimum wage, depending on the age range of the applicant that comes forward. But as an employer, you have the option to increase those hours and increase that pay if you want to. And so you can do that yourself. But for the 25 hours on the minimum wage, they will be covered. And then, as I say, you do get this bursary and you get ongoing support. So as a gateway, we provide the employer with support around hiring that person, and particularly if that individual might have special further needs, or whether they've got anything that they need to for more support or facing barriers to work, and certainly reasonable adjustments and things like that. We support with that. But mainly it's just about getting that person a real quality experience and something they can move forward with. So that's what we're asking these guys to offer. Frankly, at the moment, with the way things are going with staffing and certainly with people's cash flow, it's a bit of a no-brainer, because what you're actually doing is introducing a new role into your business that's funded for 6 months to see if that works. If it does work, great, got someone in situ. If it doesn't, it didn't work, but we can look at maybe another option, and you can continue doing it over the 6 month period. There's no obligation to hire at the end of that 6 months. So
and one of the things I think might help businesses, I'm talking about my own business as well, is maybe understanding who is out there. What are the skills that are out there? Because, if there was almost like a list of, currently in the Kickstart market, call it what you want, we have the following people that are looking for placements. I think as a business, you could think, actually, I could really do with that person in my business. And suddenly you can relate to it perhaps a bit more than maybe just thinking, I think it's trying to get away from this maybe a historical thing about work experience people that, as we said at the beginning, you tended to find a bit of filing in the corner and hope that they didn't trouble you, sort of thing, going back a few years. But it is very different now. Maria, do you want to just come in on this?
Oh, sorry.
Just wanted to add in that the conversation we're having with our clients is to really think about the training and the induction that person will need. Like any employee coming to your business, but particularly somebody who might be inexperienced, or maybe a fresh graduate, or somebody who just completed some certification, you need to give them the time for the role to really succeed. So it's all well and good, but if you are stretched and bursting at the seams, it might not be right for you at the right time. So I think just put if you're going to do it, also set some times aside to put good induction in place and good training program to really handhold that person, so that hopefully by the end of the 6 months you can convert them and they can be part of your business.
And the added challenge as well of potentially having to do a lot of that virtually.
Absolutely.
Via a Zoom, and how do you actually keep that sort of company morale and how does that work if you're working remotely, particularly if you're fairly inexperienced as a sort of young sort of Kickstarter. But that's all challenges which you can overcome them. It's just being aware of them, I suppose, and going into it a bit with your eyes open, and working out the ways to do that. So that's really helpful. Thank you. I'm going to invite now our next speaker to just give us their update. So really great to have London Borough Sutton with us, and Candice, who is Employment and Skills for London Borough Sutton. I think, Candice, from your point of view, this is about the fact that the council can actually support employers with this apprenticeship through your levy. Is that right?
That's right. Thank you for the introduction. So just in terms of Sutton and its landscape, we have got lots of small businesses that we're eager to share our levy with. So we're a levy payer because we've got quite a high tax bill based on our staff, and we pay into a pot that gives us access to be able to get funding for apprenticeships. So we pay the training and assessment of apprenticeships, and we're eager to share that funding with local businesses. I mean, we've seen in the Plan for Jobs announcement from the government that apprenticeships are really key towards kind of changing, creating jobs and changing our workforce. It's changed significantly over the last year. We need different skills in the workforce now. So really eager to work with local businesses to be able to fund them to take somebody on and kind of train them up and have them be an asset to their workforce.
Is that a new thing? Is that something that's changed with regards to the levy? And is that
we've always been
how you spend your levy?
Yeah, we've always been able to share our funds with small businesses, but we're just really eager to kind of reach out and build stronger connections with them to be able to let them access this funding. So it's not something that's new, although the enhancement is, as Catherine mentioned, the additional funding from the government, which means everybody can get £3,000 for taking the apprentice on.
And how would a business go about applying to be part of your levy funding? Do they do that through Patricia, Successful Sutton? Do they do it directly with the council? What's the process for that?
So that would be directly with the council through our Opportunity Sutton website.
Okay.
And it'd just be an email and expression of interest.
Okay, and then the next step would be that they would then work out how that would look. And is there any, how does the funding work? Is it based on anything in particular? It's probably quite complicated, is it?
Not as complicated. So as long as the business didn't have a pay bill of over 3 million, which a lot of businesses obviously don't, then they'd be eligible. And it'd just be a matter of communicating with our HR team to be able to apply to the apprenticeship website, and then we'd transfer the funds on a monthly basis.
Okay, so is that then would be additional funds in addition to the 3K that would go towards the cost of that employee or that apprentice?
So our funds, we'd signpost them to the apprenticeship website where they would put their details in and link with us as a local authority. And then that system allows us to be able to pay monthly the training costs for the apprentice. But in addition, we also support them to access the government funding as well. And that would be via the gov.uk website. Right.
So really the message is, if anyone out there is thinking of taking on an apprentice, they should be also thinking about reaching out to London Borough Sutton, because there would be some additional support and finance out there to tie in with that whole process. I'm imagining, is that right?
Yeah, and also we offer additional support in terms of, as you said, it's about businesses understanding their needs. So what kind of apprenticeship are they looking for? We then support with linking with colleges or training providers to identify standards, so that supports the job description, so that the apprentice gets a wide range of experience, but also they have somebody who's meeting their job description.
Okay, that's great. Let's invite Elaine in. Hi, Elaine. Elaine, you're from Jace Training, and I know you also offer apprenticeships, and obviously you're based in Sutton. And I guess, the other thing for a small business in Sutton to understand is there's obviously more than one person that can supply an apprentice, whether that be the South Thames College or Jace or whoever else it might be, which can be a bit of a minefield for a business to work that one out. So welcome, Elaine. Do you want to just give us an update from your point of view?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. We've been working really well with all of our learners all the way through the lockdown, and lots of them have achieved all their qualifications while they've been in lockdown, and it's worked really well. And we're continuing to do the blended learning online with them as well as face-to-face, and a lot of our employers are allowing them to access blended learning while they're in their workplaces as well, so that they don't lose them for the day, but they get to let them out maybe for an hour to do a maths lesson or something like that. Whereas it might take them 2 or 3 hours of a morning if they had to have time out. So they're quite keen on all of that. We've got the study programs and the traineeships, which are going really well. Traineeships are really good for the employers because they can have somebody in there to see how they work before they transfer them over into an apprenticeship. So they always work really well as well. And we're also offering lots of first aid courses, and there's also blended learning with that now, which the employers like as well, because it's cutting the time down to 1 day of practical and the rest of it is online. So that's working well for us as well. And then we've got lots of apprenticeships. So we've got the new surveying apprenticeships at the moment. Childcare is our biggest one. We have lots in childcare, and then we do business admin, customer service, play work, youth work, and all those bits as well, with teachers, teaching assistant as well. I have to think about them all.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no end to them, isn't there? And
no.
I guess that's the beauty of it, really, that there really is an apprenticeship for every sector.
There is.
It's just accessing it and working out who the best provider might be, and actually who the best applicant is. Because I'm imagining if you're an applicant looking to become an apprentice, you can apply in more than one place. You don't have to just put an application into one place. You can go into a variety of places.
Go wherever you like. Yeah, you can apply to all of them, and then you can be interviewed in all areas. Then you decide which one is best for you to be able to work with. And some people don't like the big college environments. So, of course, Jace is quite small. Our classes are only up to about 8 or 10. So it's quite a small environment. So if you've got a learner that's a bit anxious or has got other problems, they don't like being in a large classroom, then we're quite small and personal. So, they like to come to us for that reason.
Yeah. And I guess the main reason and the main thing to stress to anybody in Sutton is it is about working together. And, COVID has proven that over the last year, actually this collaboration, a collaborative approach to all being in it together, to helping each other out, and just bringing Patricia back in. That's, again, very much the role that Successful Sutton have been playing, hasn't it, about the bid? No one's particularly known what the roadmap is to recovery and what the next step's going to be, but actually keep having conversations, keep communicating. And that's the role that you've been playing for the bid and will continue to do so.
I think so. I think because it's all a bit of an unknown quantity. There's so much information out there. There's an awful lot of information, certainly about apprenticeships out there to kind of divulge and understand. But I certainly think around COVID and the restrictions and the reopening and so on and so forth, particularly around furlough, around budgeting, around cash flow, around funding agreements and grants and everything else that's available at the moment, I think it can be a bit of a minefield. So if we can, in any small way, try and dissect that for people and give them an opportunity to find out through these webinars, certainly, or just from raising their hand and saying, I really don't know where to begin here. At least because of where we sit within Sutton, and certainly we have links towards the council, we have links to all the providers that are on this call today and all the other calls that we've done. We can certainly find out who can answer the question for them and put them in touch or get the answers for them and give them some support. But there's no shame in it. I mean, certainly we do. We have to put our hands up and say, right, how do we find out this bit of information? We're members of large groups of bid organisations that form one base camp through the Association of Town Centre Managers, and it's constantly filling up with questions and learning and understanding how to access that support. So I would really hope that the businesses, particularly within our district and in the borough in general, if they have a question, it's always good to just stick down and say, what is the answer to this?
So, I mean, that's a good point to make. I think that Successful Sutton bid is predominantly a town centre bid. There are three other bids in Sutton with their own geographical remits, sectoral remits. But you are working on behalf of the whole borough on this project. So it isn't that the Sutton Job Hub is just about the centre of town.
No, and I think that's key. I mean, whatever we do in the borough affects the town centre. We are the town centre bid. We are keen to have a proactive role in managing and keeping afloat the businesses that we've got here. And in order to do that, the people that live in the borough need to be employed and certainly need to have money to spend. So we wanted to, we've been given a very unique opportunity here to really have a say and really have an input towards that. And certainly from a business standpoint, we not every role is going to be fulfilled in our town centre. We have a lot of sectors here, don't get me wrong, but there is always going to be one or two, particularly with industrial bases. So we don't have an industrial base here in Sutton, in the town centre, but we do in the two other bids. They're both industrial bids. So it's important for us to have that connectivity to them, to really reach out and find roles for people, whether it's warehousing, whether it's forklift. And I'll give you an example. So our town centre Kickstart placements, the ones we've started kind of a very warm launch and discussion with some employers on and have managed to secure grant funding for them. They vary. So it's not just retail-based stuff. We've got administrative, we've got receptionist roles, we have sound and light technician roles, we've got food and beverage business roles, and sales and specialist technical positions, as well as some landscaping and gardening roles as well. So, and also childcare, strangely, we do have childcare roles. So it is a very mixed bag. And certainly the CV quality for those roles has been amazing. Yeah. So I don't fear for anybody wanting to try this out and give it a go if they have capacity, as Maria said, to do so. It does involve planning. It's not just to sit back and let this play out. You have to be really involved and engaged with it. But I think the benefit of it, to be able to bring someone in that's got limited experience and actually build them into your company ethos and how you operate is, that's a huge value to anybody at the moment. And that investment, certainly if you're being grant funded to deliver that, there is no kind of overhead cost for you to do so. So it all plays out and it does all fit together really nicely. So as I say, with Catherine, with Elaine, with everybody, there is this connectivity that's going to be formed through the Sutton Job Hub. We're planning on creating a forum of providers and certainly a forum for discussion between providers about how best to support the 18 to 24-year-olds and including the Kickstartees in the borough. And so I'm really hopeful that will be an ongoing thing, and that will then also feed back to the employers. So apprenticeship opportunities and so on, particularly unique apprenticeships, but certainly apprenticeships are a massive deal at the minute. So it'd be good to create that connectivity from our businesses to the providers and see if we can link those two things together.
Yeah, and that's the point, isn't it? That it's a one-stop shop, really. Make that phone call to your team. You can then open up that conversation across a whole range of providers to see what the best fit might be in terms of what might be out there. And we have just had a question that's come in, which I'm going to come to. But just before I do that, I just want to put a question to Maria, just around sort of redundancies and how does it work? Because, you may well be thinking of making some people redundant because you have to, because the numbers aren't adding up and you don't believe they'll add up in the future. But on the same time, you might then think, well, I can make some redundancies and potentially take on some kickstarts or some apprenticeships. Now, I know that's not the thing to do, but what is the advice on that? And what is the mechanism to stop businesses doing that, I guess?
So Kickstart is only available for new placements. So it must be a completely newly created vacancy, not replacement for one, not one that you've just made somebody redundant and so on. So you have to think
you have to prove that, presumably.
A completely different post. So that kind of that loophole has been closed. Yeah. Again, I would just encourage businesses simply to plan. Redundancies don't have to be awful, because we can just think about restructuring the business. So rather than returning to the status quo that perhaps our businesses were in before the pandemic, let's now use that opportunity to say, what do we need going forward? And that simply might mean more flexibility or slightly different roles, or maybe dual focus of a role. So yes, it might result in reduction of the number of employees or perhaps the hours that the employees work, but it doesn't have to be really grim and doesn't mean that you're going to have to say goodbye to a lot of your workforce. There are ways around it. So always say to businesses, start from a blank sheet of paper and forget the people that you love and have been working with you for a number of years. Be objective and just think, what do I as a business now need in terms of my resources and my people? Draw yourself an org chart and then kind of think, okay, we already have Maria and we already got Catherine, we already got Patricia. Where do they fit in anywhere? And then kind of take it from there and then take it back to all those employees and say, guys, we need to make some changes. I've been giving it some thought and here are my thoughts. I'm sharing. So be as transparent as you can be, because people in business also know the business, and maybe some of the blind spots that you would have missed, people might not. So it's all about transparency and really meaningfully talking to your staff to say, we need to make some changes. This is what it is. Go in, think about it. Let me know when you've got any questions. And we are very open to guide businesses through that. We are available to assist any businesses in Sutton and so on. So I would encourage them to get in touch if they've got specific questions.
So, I mean, just to everybody to say, if you want to put your details in the chat function, if anybody does want to reach out to you, and obviously we could share contact details afterwards. Now I'm going to come to a great question from someone who's listening, watching at the moment. And it's something that we are all talking about. And the basis of the question is, what help is out there for those that are currently unemployed? So we'll come to that. But this particular person, like many people, I'm sure, has lost their job due to COVID. They're in their 40s. They're looking for a new one, but they just don't know where to start. Should they be upskilling? We don't know what sector this person's currently in. But, you know, this is someone who hasn't been in the job market for over 10 years. You know, what is that first step and what should they be considering? What I'll do is I'll come to you all individually, if I may, just give that some thought, because I think it's a question that many people will be facing with. So let's start with you, Maria. What is the first thing that this person should be thinking about? Sorry, put you on the spot.
Yeah, I was hoping it would come to me last. We often talk to the employers, not so much to the employees. But if I was to put myself in those shoes, there is, as far as I'm aware, a lot of support on the government website. So that would be a really good port of call. I think go to your local borough. So I'm sure Patricia would have some more to chip in on that one. Look at your social media presence. So make sure you update. I know it's probably like obvious, but update your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you get some really good recommendations from your colleagues and connections that you had worked before, and update your CV just so you stand the best chance of being noticed by employers. What we're seeing is positive, that actually, depending on the sector where you are working, there are a lot of people looking for employees. So yes, there's also a lot of applicants out there, but it's not as if the job market is completely stagnant. So I think that would be just my only encouraging thought around that.
No, that's very helpful. Patricia, coming to you, because the role of the DWP these days, what we would know as the job centres, you know, it's not the same as I'm sure they still exist, but it's not as perhaps many of us would remember. So for this particular person, you know, what is their first step? Is it making that call? Is it registering, you know, maybe for something that they don't want to do? You know, I think I'm right in saying to benefit from Kickstart, you have to be on universal credit. Is that right? You can't, you know, how does that work?
I mean, if it just some advice. I mean, obviously, what I would suggest, if this person is able to do so, I would suggest they claim for universal credit while they haven't got any work, because what that actually does is it opens a whole pathway of very different providers who can work with individuals who are any age group. And certainly if there are any specific barriers into employment, like training, and certainly upskilling is one that they can offer, and that's all free of charge. So anyone that is actually claiming UC, they've got a lot of support on offer, and that can actually be thrown at people to get them ready to get back into work. That's the one thing. The other thing to look at is if you've already got experience and you've got skills, it's obviously always worthwhile looking at the agencies in the borough. The agencies are still looking. They are contracted to provide certain organisations like central and local government work, and the NHS and healthcare. That's another one. So they're all contracted to provide specific permanent and short and long-term placements to those providers. So it's worth registering with agencies and having a look around there. Get your CV uploaded to Total Jobs, to CV Library, to other places as well. But we'll certainly, I mean, we're looking at advertising every job that we get through the borough. So the businesses can approach us with their jobs. We're going to send those out via Enjoy Sutton, and that's very Sutton-centric, and keeping that going. But a lot of boroughs have as well employment support working. So they do actually have central hubs for employers. There's Croydon Works is an example of that. And certainly other boroughs have that set up. So it's also worthwhile registering. There's nothing to stop you registering with everybody. frankly. And that would be the way I would go forward. And also, if you can and are registered for Universal Credit, speak to your work coach at the job centre, who are all accessing appointments virtually at the moment. Have a chat with them and tell them, you want to get back into work, and give them an understanding of what your skill set is and where you want to go to. And they can then put that training in place for you.
So just bringing in the colleges and Jace, presumably you would be open to having a meeting with people like this person to, ascertain whether they are apprenticeship material. Is that how it works? How does it? Let's come to Elaine first. Hi, Elaine. What should this person do?
We could do that. We would ascertain as to whether we can provide an apprenticeship for them. But we've also got the 19 plus learner loan, so they can requalify in another vocation if they've had a thought about doing something different and they'd like to train in something different. We've had a couple of people that have lost their job during COVID and have now gone into nurseries and taken out the loans and are now doing something totally different to what they've done for 20 years.
Yeah, which in some cases is actually a very nice opportunity to reinvent yourself and perhaps go down a path that you wouldn't have otherwise done.
Absolutely. And one in particular that we've just taken on, he's gone into a nursery, he's got a family, and he's been able to now have better work-life balance because he doesn't have to work as many hours as he was working before in his previous job, and he's able to spend more time with his family and retrain and have a new job. So we can offer that as well. So it's quite nice.
If you haven't done already, pop your details in for that person into the chat. And just coming to Angela, and Catherine, similar message from you, I guess, from South Thames College Group.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's the advanced learner loans, as Elaine says. There's also the adult education budget, which is all about lots and lots of different courses that people can access for free. So depending on what this person, where there might be some skills gaps, there's likely to be courses in that area. And actually something that we do find is sort of, I suppose, people over 40, digital skills is a huge one. Because the younger people are fantastic, not to generalise, but, the over 40s maybe need a little bit more support in that area, and there are lots of courses in that.
So using it as an opportunity to upskill, which presumably you can do and still claim universal credit. So it's not going to disadvantage you, it'll just give you an opportunity to be upskilled. Okay, I've got a question from a local business owner who says they've been lucky enough to remain open and fairly busy. Don't say what sector you're in. It'd be interesting to know what sort of business you're running. But they now need extra hands and they're looking at potentially getting a first apprentice. Is it a lot of work? Is it a risky way to go? Hi.
Could I just add to the previous question?
Candice, yes.
It's just really, really important, I'd say, for that person to go to the job centre, because the borough oversees lots of programmes of support. So one in particular is our job entry targeted support programme. And that somebody can be referred to that via the job centre, and that actually targets people who've recently been impacted by COVID and lost their jobs, etc. Yeah. So it provides support around CVs, interview skills and job searches, both via the phone and digitally. So it's a really good kind of hand-holding into this new world and trying to access a new kind of career. So
are the job centres still open physically, or is it all virtual at the moment?
Depending on your circumstances, so they are still open. Ideally, they're not seeing people face to face, but it depends on someone's circumstance. So, for example, if you haven't got access to a computer at home, then you're better to go to the job centre. And also, we've got national careers advisors who are linked to the job centre, so they can provide careers advice and support for that transition and finding out kind of what types of skills somebody needs to be trained into. And just lastly, on our Opportunity Sutton website, we've got links to online training courses as well. So Microsoft are delivering some courses at the moment which are sector specific, so it could be anything from project management to administration or business, and they're all online free of charge and can be done in the person's own time. So it's worth checking those out on that website.
Right, that's really helpful. And Patricia, presumably all of this information will be on Opportunity Sutton or indeed through the Sutton Job Hub. And at some point, I'm assuming, Patricia, you'll open physically, will you? Is the Job Hub going to have a physical presence?
Well, we are here, but I think we've got a lady called Amanda Warren. She's going to be starting with us on the 26th of April, and she's going to lead we're kind of in the process of setting everything up, getting the partnerships together, getting some referrals through, particularly through Kickstart. But Amanda will be leading on that. So she's starting on the 26th of April. But prior to that, just finishing off our website, which will have a portal which will enable employers to put vacancies on. But it will also, as soon as those vacancies go on and are confirmed live, they will go straight out on the @Enjoy Sutton website. But what we can also put on there, which I want to put on there, is a list of how to contact all of these providers, and particularly a bit of a blurb about the apprenticeships, just a kind of fact sheet that gives people a bit of an understanding of what's involved in those. But Amanda's background is very much geared towards apprenticeships. What I'm hoping is that as she's engaging with our businesses, particularly around the vacancies they have, some of those, if not as many of them as possible, can be converted to apprenticeships, because I do think that is a really strong way forward, particularly for some of the younger people of the borough. So I will be getting her, as soon as she's up and live, then we'll be going to be sending that out to everybody and giving them a date when they can actually access those things, and sending out all of the information via our MailChimp as well to all of our businesses, as well as advertising it more widely.
Right, good. Okay, so going to come to this question then. And I guess the people to ask are Jace and South Thames initially. It is work to take on an apprentice. Is it a risk to a small business? So what could go wrong? I don't know who wants to answer that first. Catherine? No? Let's try Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
Hi. I don't think it's a risk. I think that it's always going to be worth taking on an apprentice, because you get to mould them how you want them, and you get to teach them exactly how you want your company to run. So in the future, they're going to be an asset to your company.
Is there a risk if it doesn't work out?
There is a risk if it doesn't work out, because you will have put all of your time and energy into trying to train this person how you want them, and then they just get up and go, or they're not suitable, or it just doesn't work, or they don't turn up and their attendance is poor. So we don't know that until they start working.
But there's no financial risk. So as a business, you're not being required to pay back anything if your apprentice.
No, I mean, I think if you get the £3,000 from the government, you only get a percentage of it if they only stay for a percentage of the time. But you don't have to pay any of it back. There's no payments to go back to anybody if your apprentice doesn't work out for you.
Okay, so in terms of the time that it takes, you're running a small business, you're battling hard to keep your head above water as it is, and then you've got this person that could be quite needy, potentially. How does that work?
Well, I mean, they would have support from their assessors as well. So we would like to think that the company that's taken them on would be in communication with their training provider all of the time, and seeking support from them for their apprentice as well. And hopefully they wouldn't be the only person in their business that would be able to support them.
So just to clarify then, I think I'm right in saying that an apprentice spends about 20% of their working week actually classroom based with their assessor?
Yes, so if they're doing a 40-hour week, 8 of those will be, it doesn't necessarily have to be classroom based, but it does have to be away from their ordinary job they would do for the rest of the time. Yeah, right. So they can either come into us, or they can keep them there and have them in their office doing their work if they want to. They can access our online workshops from their workplace, so that the employer knows that they're actually attending and doing their work. So they have to pay them for those 8 hours as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I know from experience that yes, they can take some work, but on the other hand, as you say, they can be extremely valuable, and it's always worked very well for our business to have somebody there. But it does take some time. But that's only like managing anybody in the business. If you manage them properly, that is a commitment that you need to make. So, Angela, I don't know whether you want to come in and with any experience that you might have of this.
Apprenticeship is not really my area, more Catherine's. But yeah, it's like you say, we also provide like support. So while they're on placement, it's like if you take on a member of staff, you're the ones dealing with them all the time. But you've also got the support of an assessor or someone at the college, a nominated person who will help and assist with any issues. you know, for example, if there's like a timekeeping issue, you know, you can contact someone at the college, they'll speak to the person, it can be resolved quite quickly. So there is that level of support there.
I can definitely vouch for the fact that it is a supported role, and actually it's quite nice to know there is somebody else supporting that person at the end of a phone if there is an issue with them. So I would say to this person not to feel that that's a reason not to go for it. It can be hugely rewarding seeing how that person develops within your company and what they can bring to the company. Just coming back to Maria, from an HR perspective, I'm assuming an apprentice has all the same HR rights, do they, or employee rights? How does that work?
Similar. So the only thing that I would mention from HR perspective is to make sure that you've got a good apprenticeship contract with the apprentice, and that you work really closely with the training provider if things are not going to plan, so that you are able to nip it in the bud really quickly and just don't let it lapse. Dismissing an apprentice, that's the worst case scenario and doesn't happen very often, so I don't want to discourage you. It's a little bit tricky. So just making sure that, my comment back to the Kickstart scheme, just spend that time initially to really help them embed in your organisation, to set the standards, particularly if you may or may not be working remotely, so they know exactly what's expected of them, and manage that as you go along and chat to the training providers. So just don't kind of let it lapse because you haven't got time.
I guess it's the same as employing anybody. You need to get the right person in the first place. So it's actually making sure that you've got the right person for the role that you're looking for, which would then probably alleviate, problems further down the line if you haven't got the right fit. But that would be the same whether they were an apprentice or a normal employee. So I guess the same rules apply around interviewing and selection and job descriptions, and making sure you're clear about what it is you're looking for and what you need as a business, rather than just thinking it's a quick win to get an extra pair of hands. Have to treat it in the same way. Great. Well, I'm conscious of time, so what I just want to do is just come back to everybody for a few last words. I guess just a last word from everyone on, a best piece of advice, next steps. We are moving into what we hope is an exciting period. Businesses, the world, the high streets are reopening, which is exciting but also challenging, and does bring some new concerns probably. But maybe if I could just come maybe first of all to you, Candice, from the London Borough Sutton perspective. What's your message to businesses at this time?
I would say just keep engaging with the local authority. We're planning to do a business roundtable in May that's going to be chaired by a deputy leader. So we're going to be asking businesses for feedback in terms of how they found recovering from COVID, and also identifying things that we can do to support them going forward. So keep engaging with the local job centre, because there is lots and lots on offer nationally over the country. The government have put lots of money into funding projects to support people to be able to recover from COVID, so employment projects and training projects. There's lots and lots of funding out there. All that information is available on the Opportunity Sutton website as well. So just kind of keep engaged and keep looking, because you'll find the support that you need.
Great, thanks, Candice. And over to you, Angela. Last words from South Thames Colleges Group.
If you need any support in upskilling your staff, or you want to offer some work experience students, they're free. You don't need to pay them. They come with updated skills, so they will be a great help to help you get back on track.
Great, thank you very much. And Elaine, from Jace?
I would just say to really consider taking on apprenticeships, even if you've not done it before, because like you've said, it is rewarding, and you see them grow and you watch them develop in so many ways. It's lovely. And also, if you're 19 plus and you're looking to change vocations, consider the loan, because it's a way of getting into something different that you've never really thought of before.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Thank you. Maria, the last hot HR tip for today.
So we're definitely seeing some positivity as businesses reopen and return, perhaps from furlough. So I'd say when you are planning on returning your workforce back, perhaps to offices or premises, don't work against the grain. Don't try to push people to really return to the offices. We find that the companies that have been most successful in managing transitions are the ones who have actually listened to the voice of their employees and kind of worked with it and embraced that change and use that as an opportunity to maybe reduce premises size and therefore save some money as well and reallocate it somewhere else. So rather than try to drag everybody to the offices, just work with them.
And that's definitely been the message of the last year, hasn't it, really? To keep communicating, to keep talking, to keep listening, to keep working together, sharing experiences as we're doing through this webinar series. So final few words from you, Patricia. I know we're back again next week with some more updates, but final few words from Successful Sutton.
It's just to say that obviously there are a lot of organisations and certainly providers that are willing to support businesses at the moment. And if anyone needs anything at all, we would hope that they obviously know how to contact the bid, and I'm more than happy to put them in touch with whoever they need to talk to. But I would encourage them, as Maria said, to really plan and have a look at what they need. Overhead cost is going to be a massive thing coming up when we start to reopen places. So just understanding what the overhead costs are, how you can manage those, and working flexibly with your staff. And then looking to see whether you can hire and what that would actually look like for you is probably the best way forward for many. But yeah, do just contact us if you need anything at all.
Lovely. Well, thank you to all of our panelists this afternoon. It's been great having you with us, and we'll see you all again next week for another webinar, Sutton Means Business with Successful Sutton. So thank you all very much, and goodbye for now.